All right, guys, welcome to part three of our followership series. I love talking about followership. That is why I chose this module to do this way instead of y'all just kind of seeing a pre-recorded thing. For me, I think it talks about leadership in a very different way than most people are used to. And so in part one, we talked about these are kind of my five things as to why I think talking about followership is really important. That learning to follow teaches us how to lead. So learn to follow, learn to lead. There's a lot of overlap there. Emphasizing followership gives everyone a role on the team. Just because you're not a captain or a senior or have this title doesn't mean you're not, doesn't mean you're kind of left off the hook of where the team is headed. Not everyone wants to be a leader or should be. I have an 8-year-old that is never going to pursue that. He is going to be that, what we're going to talk about today, first follower guy, the number one cheerleader supporter. And so he doesn't want it. And there are a lot of people who we've probably seen who've been given leadership reins and never should have been, right? So, again, important to teach followership really well. Without followers, there would be no movements. Again, we're going to drive that home today. And then everyone leads and everyone follows and leads at some point. So what that means is even someone who is the head coach, right? We're doing athletic leadership. The head coach still has a boss. The head coach is a boss and still has a boss, so the head coach is leading, but then also has to follow, right? And I think the people who are very effective leaders are the ones who can get this right, who know when to take a step back and give someone else the reins, right? Or who really needs to insert himself or herself. So those are kind of my top five. We talked about that and some other things. And then the last one I pulled from the text, we kind of went over the different types of followers that have been discussed in research. And so, dating back to 1965 to the most recently 2008, Kellerman was one of the articles that I asked you to read because I felt like it gave you a really good synopsis of kind of where followership has been. Um, and so we just kind of talked about these different types, right? And how over time, what academics have started really looking at is this level of engagement, right? When it comes to followership, like how engaged they are and how that determines the type of follower they are and the followership traits that are associated with them. Chalif has two really good books I've said on every Zoom, so I'll go ahead and say it now because I feel like he does a really good job when he talks about how followers can challenge the leader and support the leader. And his books are Courageous Leadership and Intelligent Disobedience. And so I think just hearing those titles tells you kind of what he's all about, right? He doesn't just want the sheep. He doesn't just think followers should be yes people. He doesn't think followers are just supposed to be blind, right? And just letting the leader do whatever they want to do. They're the ones who make sure that the wheels don't go off the wagon and keep that leader in check. So we talked about those. And so what I wanted to do today is I wanted to hear from you because hopefully you have done a little bit of the reading and you've heard some of these talks or just in your mind thinking about followers is like who is your ideal follower? Like who comes to mind, fictional or not, fictional, real, someone you know, don't know. Who comes to mind when you think about a follower? In some of my past stuff, I've used I don't know what year it was, but the national championship game when Jalen Hurts got hurt and Tua came in. I kind of use that dynamic as an example of someone who's just like an ideal teammate as a follower, right? It's just ready to step in. If you're someone who reads the Bible, I've used James, the brother of Jesus, as an ultimate follower. And then my personal favorite, though, is Dory from the movies Finding Nemo and Finding Dory. And we kind of talked about this in part two because I used Marlin and Dory as a duo to kind of discuss followership traits. But to me, and then I'll let you guys share yours. Dory has a skill set that Marlin needs to get there. Marlin has this vision. Marlin has this passion and purpose, right? It's his son that's missing. But Dory is the one that has can speak whale, has an enthusiasm about her, is people oriented because Marlin is not, can read escape, like is friendly with the turtles, all these things, right? That helps Marlin get to where he wants to go. So to me, she has some ideal follower traits that I think a lot of us could learn from. So Dory's my example. Anybody else have one? Who's an ideal follower? Who's comes to mind? There are no wrong answers.
I mean, I feel like kind of an obvious answer is like Robin with Batman. Kind of like I think goes along with your Dory and Marlin example. Kind of like a duo. But you always hear about Batman, like Batman is the hero at the end of the day, but like Robin is following alongside him and helping him just as much, and like Batman wouldn't be anything without Robin either. So like I'm thinking of it as like a sidekick type of thing. And Robin is the first sidekick that kind of comes to my mind.
Okay. Yeah, Robin saves Batman, gets him out of a lot of jams,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
From the Wonder.
I would say like the Brady and Belichick thing. So kind of how like one wouldn't be there without the other. Like yeah, a lot of people say that Tom Brady was the reason, but Bill Belichick's the reason he was there in the first place. So
Yeah, who knows? Like if those two don't match like pair up at some point in their careers, like who knows if that magic happens? Like who knows if Belichick can do it without Brady or if Brady can do it without Belichick. Obviously Brady did it white once with the Bucks, but like what they did with the Patriots is not the same thing. Anybody else? One more.
I don't mean to use the one that you've already talked about, but like Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, when you mentioned the two of them, I really thought about that. Like, is that something Jordan could have done on his own? Really thinking about it and following his career when I was younger. But I mean, I think Scottie Pippen was probably just an ideal follower. I'm not sure he would have liked that term personally.
That's a question I wanted to ask y'all. So yeah, I agree with that. I mean, because that you think about like the whole that whole group, right? Because there was Tony Kukoc, you had Steve Kerr, like who else am I overlooking, right? It wasn't like Pippen wasn't the only supporting cast, but I don't think any of the other supporting cast could have played the role Pippen played, right? Like without Kerr, maybe they can still do it. Without Kukoc, maybe they can still do it. But without Pippen, I don't know. Like I think he was just a different type of teammate and competitor. So to that point, Heather, like when you think about, I think a lot of people don't like the word follower, right? And Allie, to your word sidekick, that's one that I've used a lot. I still get some pushback on that too. What would be a word that people you think could embrace a little bit more?
Maybe partner is something that people would maybe embrace more of being a partner. And I didn't get a chance to throw in. I was thinking about maybe LeBron James's wife. She's kind of a silent partner, and you never really hear anything she says, but she's kind of always there in the background. And I'm sure she speaks to him about maybe making choice and family decisions, but you've never heard anything about her being disgruntled about making a move somewhere or some kind of maybe a business move. And I think she's just a great follower, but more or less a great silent partner, if I could say, if that could be a word
Yeah, and
or a phrase.
I would even say probably, John, that like she's probably not that silent at home. She just
Right.
chooses to be private. But I think, and I'll just, as a former, well, I'm still a coach's wife, but a head coach's wife, like those players' wives and coaches' wives, like that's a group of people that we're missing out on learning from because the lives they have to lead are nuts, just nuts. Like I've been working with one of Louisville's players whose dad played in the league, and she's been talking to me about how she grew up and stuff, and it's just like just so different and amazing and the type of life they have. And I just feel like we could learn so much from that example, John. So thanks for pointing that out. Anything else? A partner? Anybody have another example or another word that you feel people would get on
Yeah,
board with?
I'll go with the word just teammate. I know that's kind of, more saying that they're equal, but just all the examples that we talked about, like the follower, the leader, they really were a team. Like we were saying, Brady and Belichick or Scotty and Jordan, like they wouldn't have got there without each other. So I think just using the word teammate is probably less like not degrading towards the less follower, but it's just more of like showing that, like they work together for the same purpose, even though one might be following the other a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna put some thought into that. I actually use that a lot. I have a teammate grid thing that I do when I work with teams, and the ideal teammate, I actually call them a follower. Um, and I see it. I like it because it introduces this idea of how we're supposed to treat people and there being like this level playing field. But like, let's be honest, like Jordan and Pippen weren't on the same level, you know? So like, that's to me, I think the hard part for folks to swallow when we talk about this. You don't want to use words like subordinate or, my minions or my little peons, right? Because that's obviously very condescending. But does using partner and teammate introduce like too much of it, the same? I don't know. It makes me think, Nick. It's a good thought and a great suggestion.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that when y'all were talking about the word partner. I love that word in this situation, but when you think of partners, you think of like completely equal. And if one is technically supposed to be like leading, then that's kind of a gray area, I feel like. But I do like that as a word as opposed to follower, because when I hear that I had to be a follower, like I don't necessarily love that idea myself, you know. It's kind of like you said, kind of a hard pill to swallow for some people.
Well, there's this self-leadership component, right? Like we all have to be leading ourselves really well. I think where we get maybe into trouble is when we talk about words like I don't know. Y'all are making me think, and I appreciate that. Like when we start talking about words like equal or same, I don't know. I think it gets a little tricky because there's buy-in and investment, and those are the same across the board. But the role, I guess, in which you're playing, right? Your job, your responsibilities, I think maybe is where it gets a little different from that partner teammate way, right? Any other thoughts on this? This is a complete total tangent, so
I just kind of think about like post-game press conferences then, because I feel like the leader in the duo will mo like more often talk about their, teammates or partners as teammates versus the follower in the duo, the one that's, maybe not as prominent, will always say like, "Oh, that's our leader, like that's our captain." So I think it just kind of varies on which role you are, like how you phrase it. I feel like the better player will kind of be more humble and call their, everyone else their teammates and their equals. But those who are not and kind of playing the follower role will just kind of automatically be like, that's our guy, he's our leader, and kind of be more, accepting of that.
yeah, I think that might be something that um we should focus on more. Like if you're not gonna be the leader, like you don't want it, you don't want to be it, then can you acknowledge that someone else is? Because I think if you think of some teams that maybe that you've had a teammate or somebody that is like, I don't want that. I don't want that responsibility. I don't want that on my shoulders and burdens. I just want to get out of here and do me. But then can you say that and then acknowledge that it's someone else is? And maybe that's what makes someone like Pippen so unique, right? He accepted his role and also gave credit where credit was due, in a way. I don't know. Food for thought. Let's talk about this concept today. We're going to talk about first followers. So everybody watched the video, which is great. I did put in the chat if you haven't. Has anyone seen this video before?
I've seen it, but I didn't see it with the narrating.
Oh, okay. You just saw the guy dancing?
Just saw the guy dancing. Yeah.
Yeah, he's actually turned this one into a TED Talk too, but I like the original because it's very short. And the TED Talk's not long either, but I just like the first time he did it. And so initial reactions and thoughts to the video?
I thought it was genius that they did it that way. And it made a lot of sense. You know, when I first started watching it, I thought, well, this is just going to be silly. And but then when you started to listen, and it made complete and total sense what the narrator was talking about.
Yeah, I thought he made some good points. And so we have some questions here that I thought we could just kind of discuss. And since there's, five of y'all on the call, we can just do it in a big group. I also made homemade meatloaf and homemade mashed potatoes for dinner, and they're cooking right now, and so I'm very excited to get back up to that. I don't normally cook that way, so I'm not trying to take up a lot of anybody's time tonight. So, in the video, what is some of the terminology the narrator uses that shows that he recognizes the importance of followership? That's kind of tedious, especially if you didn't watch the video recently, but do you kind of remember any of the way he kind of talked about the followers?
One main thing I wrote down was that being the first follower is a underappreciated form of leadership. I just thought that was really cool because, like, yeah, it takes guts to be that first follower, and you almost have to be a leader in, in your own right to kind of kickstart that follower movement.
Yeah, I mean, just as risky as it was for the first guy to get up there and start dancing, right? Was it even riskier for the second one? Like he doesn't know what this guy's about, right? He just thinks he's doing something that's worth doing. So yeah, I think that's great. There's courage there too. Anything else?
I think like kind of what Nick was saying, he drew attention more the first follower drew more attention to what was happening because now there's two people doing it. Now it's a thing, you know. So kind of like what you were saying, like kind of takes a little bit of courage to even be that second weirdo out there that's dancing. And then as more and more people joined in, like it kind of took less and less out of people because now it's a big thing and it's growing and everybody's doing it and now it's a trend. Um, so of course like it takes a lot for like that first person to get up and start dancing, but then like to join somebody in their weirdness, I feel like also takes some courage as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the guy dancing, there's nothing, he's just a guy dancing. It's not until the first guy gets up there and then the others come that like it then it becomes something. It gives it meaning or purpose, right? So like followers make something meaningful. And in a way, I do think like, okay, you got the first follower, then you have two and three. That makes like takes the decision making like off the table for everybody else. Like, yeah, this is a no-brainer now. I'm just, that's totally fine. So, yeah, I think that's a good point. So, question two, in the video, the narrator says that the leader embraces the first follower as an equal. Remember a time when you were embraced as an equal or felt empowered as a follower? What caused you to feel this way? What role did the leader play in empowering others? I'm not someone who adheres. The people who say great leaders make more leaders. I think that's great. I also think great leaders make really, really exceptional elite level followers. So, what role does the leader play in that? And do y'all kind of remember a time when maybe you started something new or um, someone embraced you and didn't have to?
Uh,
Um, my
Go
bad.
ahead. No, go ahead, Ryan.
I think one thing that I can remember vividly is just like me playing high school football. And I played quarterback, so like I would go and just like give play recommendations to my coach and whatever. And sometimes he would like really listen to me and we would end up running the plays or whatever. So I feel like that was a time when, I felt embraced. I wasn't the leader because he was, but he gave me an open voice and a way to, voice my opinion and sometimes he would listen. So that was cool.
Yeah, that's empowering when someone asks you what you have to say.
Yeah.
I feel like I did like a lot of my professional growing in like a retail job that I had when I was in my undergrad. And I was a head cashier, so I was like not at the very bottom of the food chain, but I was like not at the top either. And so whenever like management would like give me some of those decisions to make, and they would let me make my own decisions about like what I did. I worked up front, so like they let me make decisions on like merchandising up front and like what my cashiers were gonna do and like different things like that. It just kind of made me feel like I had a say in how the store was going and how things were doing, which was a little bit empowering, even though I was just like working in a retail job. Like it helped me to learn how to like kind of navigate those decisions because I had a team that I was leading, you know?
Yeah, so having some autonomy, right?
Mm.
And feeling micromanaged, that there's someone's just looking over your shoulder all the time. Yeah, those are two really great examples. The next one, like in the video, the narrator says that new followers emulate followers, not the leaders. Do you agree or disagree with this?
I
I
would
oh,
agree.
go.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would agree that the new followers would emulate the first followers because the leaders kind of set the culture. If I'm thinking about it from like a coaching standpoint, he's kind of set the culture and the mood, and the new followers the first followers been embraced, so the new followers like, hey, cool, let's jump in and follow these guys because they're following this awesome person that's already kind of set the standard and culture of fun and loving and having a good time and being goofy out here. So I think it does happen. I agree that it does happen that new followers tend to kind of come in and look at the followers that's already there because the first followers have kind of bought into the culture of what the leader has set forth.
Yeah, hopefully, right? Hopefully if that culture is in a good place and a healthy place and that leader's doing what they're supposed to do, it's been passed down. Those are good points. Heather, what you got?
I was gonna say something similar and just kind of talking about like in the video, they mentioned the narrator mentioned how the most important people they felt were those first two leaders to get a movement going. So it was much easier then for the other followers that started to come in to probably emulate more of the followers, and then kind of I hate to say a hierarchy kind of type thing, but when you get new followers in, they will tend to emulate the people who've already been there or been following, and then kind of working your way up, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think about like coming into a team or you're good at starting a new job. Like you might get 5 minutes with your head coach or your boss or your captain or your senior your first week, right? But the people you're spending your time with are the other freshmen or maybe a sophomore or the other entry level people. So when I think about it that way, I do agree with the statement and even a proximity thing too, right? If you think about large corporations and the way things are now, how people are working remotely, even is like in that video, like when it started growing, like no one could see the leader anymore, right? They could just see the person that they were sitting next to who was standing next to the person who started dancing just before them. So I think about proximity a lot and access when it comes to that question. In the video, the narrator says leadership is over glorified. Do you agree or disagree?
At the end of the video, like what you just said, like nobody could see the leader anymore. It was just like a mob of people all dancing and having a good time. Um, and so the leader of the in the situation like didn't matter. The person that started the movement didn't matter at the end of the day. At the end of the day, everybody was dancing and having a great time, and it was like a big thing. Um, so I would say that I do agree with the narrator. And once you get a movement started, like it's not about you anymore, it's about the movement. Um, so I think that yeah, I would definitely agree with that statement.
I would kind of I agree with what you have to say, but also like it would have never started without the leader. I think in some ways the followers are underglorified, and like the importance of the follower isn't stressed enough.
I'm withholding my opinion until everyone who wants to share shares.
I think it's both. I just think it's in different situations. Like in a random situation like this, I think maybe followers, play a bigger role just because you're starting a movement from nothing and it's just kind of sporadic and out of the blue. But in terms of like setting a culture of a team or like setting a culture like within the office, I think a leader isn't necessarily over glorified. I feel like that role as a leader to like, keep it constant and really like maintain that level of whatever culture that they have is kind of more important than just starting a dance, in terms of leaders versus followers.
Yeah, I definitely think like in that specific example, like nobody saw the leader at the end of the day, but in like your everyday life or on a team or whatever, like everybody's always looking towards a specific leader. Um, so I don't know, a little bit of both, I guess, in like everyday situations, but in that particular situation, like I don't know what the leader's name was, like nobody did, So
Yeah, I mean, there's a saying, I don't know where I ever heard it, but it's like the sign of a really good leader is that you remove them from the organization or the room or whatever, and nothing changes, right? So in a way, I think that like that speaks to it being a little bit over glorified, but who knows if there would even be a room or organization without the person. So I kind of lean more towards Ryan's argument of that. I don't know if leadership's necessarily over glorified. I just think followers are incredibly under and aren't given credit where credit's due. I mean, even if you think about the not so good things that have happened in our world, we know the leaders' names, but like those things didn't happen just because of that one person, right? So even when we want to praise like these followers who are making all this good, I mean, all the bad stuff also happens because of the followers, right? And so I think giving more attention and credit and glory to the followers is probably the answer. I don't necessarily think we need to stop glorifying leaders, um, but there's a lot more to movements and progress and the good and the bad than just the leader. So, anybody else have thoughts? So I just wanted to leave you with this. This is just kind of, I knew that was going to kind of be the major discussion, but learning and understanding followership helps us with a lot of things. I think it helps us understand ourselves, kind of back to that point of like we're all followers and leaders, um, even within a day. If you're part of a family, you're leading and following at different times. If you have a job, you're leading and following. If you're in a friend group, right? And kind of knowing when to be what, I think is a really um, crucial concept and skill for us to have, right? It also helps us better understand the effectiveness of our own leadership. I feel like if we're doing a better job of understanding followers, then we're going to need to know maybe the types of followers and the characteristics of followers that we need on our team when we are in that leadership chair. I think it helps us identify specific follower traits that our organization needs to be successful. And I also think it emphasizes the importance of a healthy dynamic, right? We don't want the yes people. We don't want the sheep. We don't want people blindly following, right? We want, y'all said partner and teammate. Like we want the give and the take. We want to be here. And I think that we're not going to get there until we really have a good understanding of followership and develop our followers the same way that we're developing our leaders. Is there anything else that you would like to add to this list that you have maybe walked away from this module with? One thing, just to make my heart feel good.
For me, I think it was kind of going back towards the beginning, like you hear follower and you think of more negative words. So looking, having watched the other videos and just the readings and stuff, it's changed my perception of followership, I guess. And as you just mentioned, I mean, when I think about it, I go through a day wearing both hats, being a follower at some points and being a leader at other times.
Yeah, good. I'm happy to hear, Heather, that, can you kind of give you a mindset shift? I do this work a lot with teams, especially with teams who don't have upperclassmen, which these days rosters are filled with them because of the portal and everything. But or for the people who maybe just have the one leader and they need to find the first follower. Like, who's your other kid that as soon as the leader does it and she does it, then everybody else is going to do it too. Like, finding that kid is just as important as finding those captains and those other influencers. So, hopefully you found it worthwhile. I hope everyone has a good night. I'm going to stop recording and stop sharing, and I will see y'all after fall break. Bye.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Y'all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all have
Thank
a good
you.
night.